The opening sequence of episode 72 takes us all the way back to before the events of season 2 and a beautiful morning in Ragako. Minus the gas weapon, that is not so beautiful. And let's start with something fun. War crimes! We obviously don't know exactly what their international laws are, we just know that they exist, but considering that, number 1, these are civilians, and number 2, targeted with a chemical weapon, I'll go out on a limb and say that, yeah, you know what, I think this is a war crime. And the thing is, it gets worse, because legally speaking, this is non-consensual experimentation on human beings, and it is chemical warfare. So, yes, crimes against humanity, war crimes were kind of doing the whole lot in like just a single go. Very morbid jokes aside though, I think that chilling piano in the background definitely fits the very disturbing stuff on display. This is also where Zeke slips in his teeny little lie, saying people get paralyzed when they consume his spinal fluid. Something that is absolutely crucial for his sleeper agent army plan to actually work. On the face of it, it seems like a very odd extra detail to lie about, right? Theoretically, if you were going to lie about something like this, why not just omit the details altogether? Problem is, Zeke is, unfortunately, a huge fan of Pixis, so his lies have just the right amount of truth mixed in to seem 100% believable. And so, this deliberately falsified extra detail becomes a safety net that the Paradisians rely on way too much. I mean, hey, no one's ever gotten paralyzed from anything, right? There is no reason to suspect anything. One thing I love here, though, is Levi interrupting Zeke's story and saying, it's not that village, it's Ragako, telling him to not forget its name. We'd see this in a second with Sasha too, but stories not explicitly naming those they've lost and why they are hurting has always been a huge pet peeve of mine. You'll have the cliche, everything we've lost, everyone we've lost, all the people we've lost, but for some reason, a ton of stories avoid actually naming them, which always just seems super weird to me. I guess you could make a case for it being like hard to name these things because it hurts and so you're kind of avoidance, but I don't know, in my experience, people don't really talk in weird roundabouts when talking about the people they've lost. So I think Levi explicitly butting in and telling Zeke to remember its name is another great example of Attack on Titan working to remove this emotional deflection of this ambiguous mass of people and really personifying that loss and death into singular characters. Think Fall of Shiganshin and Eren's mom, Trost and Marco, the female Titan mission and Petra, more recently Liberio and Sasha, and eventually the Rumbling and Ramsey are all a part of this. These are not abstract, ambiguous events of a big tragedy. No, these are all human lives and we feel each and every one. This is also why I think we should have seen more of the mission to recapture Maria, by the way, because the only point of emotional resonance there is Armin's grandpa, while literally a fifth of the population was wiped out. We barely see any of it, and Armin's grandpa is also mentioned in like 3 sentences. That's like one thing I think Isayama should have written a whole lot more about. We should have really felt that loss and why Parody is so incredibly hardened by the experience they had. A fifth of the population vanishing? Literally everyone on the island would feel that. Zeke also notes that he has already told them all this before. Why does Levi keep asking? Levi says that is because Zeke doesn't feel any guilt, but I always thought there was a little bit more subtext here. Obviously, Levi does not trust Zeke. In his guts, he knows full well that he is very sus, so I always view this as Levi trying to find an inconsistency in his story just to have proof that this is not legit. By having him repeat the same story over and over and over, he can find that one small thing that might not add up, but unfortunately, Zeke is a very good liar, and by the time we realize what's going on, well, you know. Also, the whole back and forth of Levi being popular is just comedy gold. Please, Isayama, I will ask again, if you ever write more of the Attack on Titan alternate universe storylines, I need these two as a detective duo. Like seriously, watch True Detective and replace Rust with Levi and Marty with Zeke. It is absolute cinema. As for the title of the episode, Children of the Forest, it is both a direct quote in this episode, as well as this broader sense of being. That doesn't make any sense, so let me try and explain what I mean. Firstly, it's a direct quote of Archer's metaphor of children being stuck in this forest where it's kill or be killed. He laments the fact that it's not the adults who bear this burden, they push it onto their children. We'll get to this a whole lot more later in the episode, so put a pin in that for now. More broadly though, I think it immediately just kinda evokes this primal sense of being. The phrase of the forest immediately paints this picture in your mind of something wild and untamed. I was rattling ideas around in my brain why it feels that way, and the only thing I could come up with is the Lord of the Flies association, since, you know, kids are cut off from civilization, they shed their humanity to the point of eventually having a shrine of a pig's head in the forest, but even that doesn't quite explain why that association exists for me, especially considering Children of the Forest is also a very literal thing in something like A Song of Ice and Fire. So I guess what I'm saying is, it's just like a really good line that, even without any kind of super artsy interpretation, immediately evokes this darker side of humanity. And when you pair that with the contrast of children, it very quickly also becomes tragic. It's not just the dark side of humanity, but it's also the innocence of children. It's not often that I hear a quote like this, and it just really sticks in my head, but this was always one that seemed so vivid in terms of conjuring up feelings and associations. Great title considering the events of this episode, and an even greater monologue. Moving into the episode itself, the Browse family arrives at the restaurant, with Niccolo promptly greeting them. After a brief goof of Archer joyily saying, since it's on the house, he brought the whole gang, we see them led into the dining room. Gabby obviously doesn't know why this whole thing is even happening, so Kaya explains that Archer is the father of the girl who was shot. For dramatization purposes, Sasha's name is not brought up just yet. But Kaya then adds that she loved Niccolo's cooking, so he invited them for a meal that he could never provide her, then saying that she believes they were actually in love. We already yapped about this with the grave scene, which is definitely one of the sentences of all time, yes. But personally, I do think there was a developing romantic relationship there. Not just because of the interactions we actually see, but also because of what it does for the story. Many times throughout, we'll hear this overgeneralized, the world hates Eldians, there is a global alliance coming to get us, it is us versus the world. But we are repeatedly showed that that is not the case. Hizuru is an ally of convenience, but still an ally. The anti-Marleyan movements already exist. Other nations have also become allies of convenience and declared war on Marley after the warriors' defeat in Shiganshina. Even on a smaller scale, the Panzer Squad are all Marleyan but treat Peak as some kind of goddess. Even someone like Magath, the literal command of Marley's military, when it comes down to it, he protects the kids. And now, we have Niccolo and Sasha, who had a potentially romantic connection. Time and time again, we are shown that the world is not a monolith. There were options to negotiate, not because you're weak and can't fight, but the direct opposite. With the rumbling, Parity would be negotiating from a place of strength. That's all separate tangent though. Point is, ECM was always very coy about drawing any kind of romance to the point of, again, removing that kiss between Eren and Mikasa at the end of Season 2, so all of this is still largely just implied. While Niccolo is cooking, the scouts on Onyankopon arrive, with him just cutting straight to the chase and saying that the scouts are investigating their detainment. Which, by the way, side note, Hanji didn't even really need the vibe check with Onyankopon that we saw last episode. All the scouts had to do was start digging into the reasons behind Yelena's actions. She put all of her pseudo-agents in all these different jobs because she had to play the puppet master and extend her influence. With Niccolo's restaurant here, almost single-handedly removing the MPs from the board altogether. Onyankopon, on the other hand, has, unfortunately, unknowingly already completed his part in this coup. He is a pilot, he got them in and out of Liberio. In Yelena's grand scheme, his actions from that point onward are no longer relevant. So yeah, compared to someone like Niccolo, he was never given any kind of indication of anything else going on. Yelena compartmentalized these things, just like Erwin did in Season 1, and clearly, that worked wonders. Unfortunately, the scouts are kinda newbies at diplomacy and really any kind of cloak and dagger shenanigans, so identifying these mission critical points was never even a point of concern. And I mean, let's be honest here, the wine plan is absolutely diabolical. Even if they identified this super big picture objective, figuring out Niccolo's role would quite literally be impossible. They have no means of testing any kind of hypothesis. The only thing they can use is what Niccolo would tell them, and even that is an assumption, so at this point they're working on like a assumption of an assumption that might be another poison pill. So TLDR, even though the scouts might feel like they're making progress in assembling all of these allies, realistically, they are like so far behind that it's almost over. Niccolo promises to help them out, but once he's done with the meal, and in the meantime, he brings them into the fancy room. Everything about the framing here is absolutely diabolical. The moment Connie speculates about the room being reserved for the MPs, he is overshadowed by the bottles of wine in the forefront. It's the gun that is currently looming over the entire island. And yes, this room is specifically designated for the MPs, and the wine is meant for said designated MPs. All of this is a part of their coup. But there's still a problem because Jean and Connie have heard the hype and they really want to try it.
Don't touch that!
Niccolo cares about Jean and Connie, and while he doesn't know what exactly is going on with the wine, he clearly suspects that something is up with it. He doesn't dare take the risk of them getting caught up in this, so he just jumps to the single most extreme excuse imaginable.
Racism!
I mean, I used the very funny out-of-context Garn clip, but this is just disturbing. Not only is it a horrifying sight to witness, you must also take into account what is currently going through Niccolo's own head. There is currently some wild cognitive dissonance going on. He knew, or at least suspected, that something was wrong, right? Yet, he never said a thing. For a little while, they really were the island devils who he never cared about. But somewhere along the way, Sasha found him, and she led him out of that dark, dark forest. So why did he stay quiet? He feels like he already has blood on his hands, and now more than ever, he wants to see Marley burn, and it's these people on the island that are actually his allies. They are the ones that took Sasha away from him, so why didn't he ever do anything to protect the people here? Why is Connie and Jean the first ones he actually does protect? I think that rattly noise of eye water in the background perfectly accentuates this downright disturbing exchange. In the meantime, Falco and Gabby follow Niccolo into the wine cellar and immediately blurt out that they are warrior candidates. Niccolo is naturally a little bit stun-locked since, what? They can't be lying because these are kids and how would they even know about the warrior candidates? Like, this is just a Marley thing? But like, what? But when Gabby starts to recount Liberio, the pieces start moving in Niccolo's brain, and a already bad situation quickly becomes oh so much worse. He asks whether she's killed anyone, to which Gabby cheerily says yes, but only a few. As it all comes together, Niccolo just snaps. Marley's delicately crafted propaganda of their nation's heroes, honorary Marleyans, and even the fact that these are literally helpless children disappears in an instant. All that remains is personal revenge. All allegiances, all morality, everything just falls away. It's just individual people and the consequences of their actions finally clashing. Not in some huge spectacle, but in its most primal form. Falco is a resident gigachad, so he throws himself in front of the person he cares for. But Niccolo just continues to beat both of them. He drags them out to Archer and tells him that the one who killed his daughter was Gabby. And as he says this, he offers him the knife. This following sequence is all about reminding us of what this is actually about. I often joke about getting lost in the sauce as we talk about these far-off philosophical ideas, but this right here is meant to cut through all of that and expose the core of humanity. The personal trauma that comes from hatred. Moments after Niccolo returns to the room, Armin and the scouts rush in, prompting Niccolo to straight up just take Falco hostage. Gabby begs to leave Falco out of it, but Niccolo just cuts back saying, "Oh, so this is someone important to you? Well, I cared for someone too, an Eldian, a spawn of the devil. She saved me from this war. Her name was Sasha Browse. She is the girl you stole from me." This is hatred for Gabby, for the world, and perhaps even more than that, himself. He was a part of what made this happen. He played a part in Sasha's death. He emphasizes that she was an Eldian, a spawn of the devil, because he was deluded enough to actually believe that these people are some kinds of devils. He had never met them, he had never seen them, he really didn't know anything about them. Just like the countless others, he just called them devils. And then he met her. Sasha showed him that it's not true, it's a ridiculous thing to even believe. She showed him that he matters in this world, she appreciates what he does. She showed him that maybe it's not that dark of a world after all. When he saw her literally begin to sob over his food, he saw the beauty in this cruel, cruel world. And that was stolen from him by another brainwashed kid who instantly reminds him of how foolish he himself had been. Gabby snaps back saying they stole people from her. People were shot by your Sasha Browse. Which, again, like we've talked about dozens of times already, yes, these are the consequences of their actions. No matter how justified your battle is, someone else will fight back. But this episode emphasizes something very different.
The woman who enjoyed the food I cooked more than anyone I'd ever met before.
Your Sasha Brow shot 2 friends of mine. She's the one who started it.
Who cares how it started?
And once again, we hit this wall. Because yes, this war only started because blame was displaced and pushed onto the next generation. It was always someone taking revenge for something. King Fritz started the war on Marley, and Marley took revenge. That went back and forth with no rhyme or reason until we arrive at the present day where it's now, again, someone else's turn to take revenge. But beneath it all, there is a reason why this started. One that has nothing to do with revenge. Revenge is only the excuse. A justification that makes these cruel acts of violence more tolerable because it's the other. Beneath it all, it is a primal fight to just survive. It's a fight over nothing more than resources. A forest of predators fighting to be at the top of the food chain. Archer takes the knife and the music fades, this sudden serenity falling upon the scene. He talks about Sasha, about how he raised her to be a hunter, how even as a wee girl she shot vermin for them to eat. Soon enough, their world changed and she left their forest. The world kept getting bigger and bigger. She became a soldier and shot people in a distant land and got herself shot. And this next part, I'll just repeat verbatim because it is just beautiful. In the end, though she left her forest, the world is a great, big forest where everyone's fighting for their life. I reckon Sasha died because she wandered in the forest too long. As he finally turns to Niccolo and the kids, he's just exhausted. The burden he is carrying is so immense that he just begins to plead with them saying, "We've gotta keep the youngins out of the forest. Otherwise, ain't nothing gonna stop it from happening again." That's why it's up to the adults to shoulder the sins of the past. One of the core pillars of the Attack on Titan story has been inheritance. Inheritance of the crown, inheritance of a Titan, inheritance of this hatred, and here we stand yet again. Another generation about to inherit that spinning wheel of violence. Archer just can't make his children do that again. He can't bring them into this world to raise them only to send them off to fight his battles. It's just cruel. Sasha wouldn't want that. He doesn't want that. No one wants to watch children do this. The scouts and even Archer immediately start caring for the duo. And just like with Kaya a few episodes prior, Gabby just doesn't understand. They don't hate her? And to immediately emphasize the weight of Archer's words, Kaya comes flying in with a knife. But no, Mikasa catches her hand, and finally, their war is over. As Gabby is walked away, she listens to the moans and cries of Kaya. The girl who tried to save them, even knowing they're Marleyan. The girl who never hated them, even though her own mother was killed by their special operation. Yet another piece of Gabby's world comes crumbling down. This entire monologue by Archer is up there with Kenny's "Everyone is a slave to something," Keith's bystander monologue, and even Erwin's greats, because, man, seeing a father cut through the noise and actually think of his children and the lives they will lead in this endless wild forest that is humanity just hits so hard. It's somehow both this sobering perspective that finally gives hope of this cycle at some point ending, but also feeling hopeless somehow. When he talks about people wandering in that forest for far too long and how it should be the adults bearing the burden, it's like he also knows that the nature of humanity will never change. All he can hope to do is just shield the young ones, but they too will wander out of their hiding place and find themselves alone in that dark forest. I absolutely love this sequence, and to think that it comes from side characters who have only been in like a handful of episodes is crazy. Archer should have gotten the Founding Titan. He somehow would have fixed the world. I believe in Archer. Archer is like top 5 Attack on Titan characters. Like, he clears everyone in the main squad, it's not even close. Archer, my goat. Unfortunately though, this is still Attack on Titan, and we still have the pressing issue of the wine to contend with. With Niccolo too now just breaking down, he just says to rinse Falco's mouth, saying he suspects that the wine contains Zeke's spinal fluid. Before we can stew on that, let us talk about stew. Yes, thank you. I do comedy shows every Friday night, 9 p.m. sharp. Get your tickets in early, they always sell out. Thank you again. The eye catcher talks about how mainland Marley's cooking focuses on seafood, because, make sure you're sitting down for this one, they're coastal. I know, very surprising. But there's also a very cheeky thing in here, the mentions of the South Marleyan famous wine and how it's indispensable both as a secret ingredient and a beverage to accompany a meal. Considering what we'd hear in just a moment about how Marley conquered entire nations in a single night by transforming random residents into titans, yeah, probably pretty indispensable indeed considering it's like one of their weapons of war. Definitely makes you wonder what other kinds of Trojan horse tactics they might have used before, considering how little preparation it technically takes. They could have sleeper armies in literally every capital of the world ready to pop off at any moment. Crazy to think about, which, by the way, again, had the Historia becomes a Titan and Eren uses the Founding Titan with her plan were to go through, Paradis would have been negotiating from a place of incomprehensible power because they would also have the full control of a Founding Titan which can do like Discord messages, but alas. The episode continues cooking because we move from the metaphorical forest that is the savagery of humanity to the very real forest where that hatred is just about as strong as it gets. Before you ask, yes, I did use the word savagery there, because the next episode is called Savagery. I know, writing fire. Levi hears about the coup taking place and how the Jaegerists now control most of the island. And also note how on Levi's side, when we focus on their beverages, that beverage is tea and or coffee. This is a very cheeky misdirect because we know all of these soldiers have two already been compromised. Also, shout out to Isayama for creating one of the strongest anti-drinking campaigns of all time. This is why you should stick to tea. See? Nothing happened to Levi. Even though, like, he's an Ackerman, so even if he did drink the wine, nothing would happen anyway. But he was still drinking tea. Levi asks about what Pixis is doing and quickly puts the pieces together. The plan is to kill Eren while he's being escorted to meet Zeke and have one of their own inherit Eren's Titans. One thing I always found a little bit surprising about this part of the story is the fact that there was never any kind of break glass in case of emergency plan. Remember that we now have the syringes, and we already have a spare Titan on the island. That's Armin. Obviously, offing him would be absolutely diabolical, but if it really becomes an existential threat and you now have full-blown coups taking place, I'm honestly surprised there wasn't a contingency plan to immediately feed Armin to Historia, yoink Eren's Titans, and take control of the Founder by already pre-designated people. If we're really working with the assumption that there is a global alliance coming to wipe the island, it makes more than a little sense to have literal assassins designated for Eren, Armin, and Historia because Eren is their only form of deterrence. Remember that at this point, all the debates around how to use the Founding Titan are purely ideological. They have the rumbling, and they know how to use it, with or without Zeke. The only reason why this is happening in the first place is because Eren wants to protect Armin and Historia. That's it. Levi briefly reflects on this. They have saved Eren over and over, each time more of his comrades dying, all because he believed that Eren was the hope of humanity. Then saying, "This is where my beliefs got me." It's like some awful joke. First off, the projected scenes of earlier in the episodes on the trees look really cool. I do think they are like a teeny bit immersion breaking considering Attack on Titan usually goes with straight minimalistic realism and portrays emotions through these slight facial nuances, but it looks really cool so I'll allow it. But secondly, this survivor's guilt is a very interesting part of Levi's character that we always know is there, but don't really often get a good look at. Time and time again, he has emphasized how every choice he makes with the promise to never regret it. Even with the big Erwin choice, he would explicitly state that he does not regret choosing Armin. So none of this, regardless of what Eren has done or will do, is about regretting his decisions. He doesn't tell himself that I made the wrong choice by protecting Eren or all of our allies died for nothing or anything like that. For him, it's a much more existential question of what was it all for? To think they sacrificed countless lives in order to protect Eren, only to have to cut him down themselves, it really does seem like some sick joke, and Levi was always the only one who survived it all. His burden, all the way through the end of the series, is simply surviving when so many others didn't. It's a really interesting way of exploring the survivor's guilt, very similar to how we see with Reiner, but what makes it unique is that none of it is about regretting your choices. It's about something much bigger than that. It's again, almost purely existential. It is just survivor's guilt in its purest form. No what ifs and buts or anything. You don't really see that often. Oh yeah, and Levi, sorry to tell you this, he's gonna get much worse. Because of course it is. As we cut back to the restaurant, we return to the wine talk while the scouts just try to wash Falco. Niccolo says that is just a guess, but they packed the ship with it. They wouldn't need that much for just a scouting mission. Then adding that, Yelena ordered him to serve the wine to the higher-up officers. This goes back to that Trojan horse tactic we talked about earlier. Yelena was an absolute galaxy brain when it comes to these covert operations. The sheer existence of the anti-Marleyan forces is kinda more than enough evidence for that. Which again takes us all the way back to that constant paranoia that we talked about last time. Not only do they have eyes and ears everywhere, they even have people unknowingly doing their bidding. And in the midst of that, we now have the Jaegerists just blowing people up, which kinda complicates matters further because there are two insurgencies and generally, things are getting really bad. And as Connie asks about the whole freezing up thing when coming in contact with the spinal fluid, Hanji says that's only according to Zeke. We have zero proof. Then saying, the effectiveness of this small lie was enormous. Must have said this like 15 times today, but I mean, it is what it is. Unfortunately for the scouts, the only times they've seen a pure Titan transformation was Rod and Armin. Armin, might as well not even talk about Armin. Armin was kind of frozen up either way because he was beef jerky. And with Rod, he transformed instantly because he was just concentrated serum. There was no kind of gas or anything like that. So again, they have literally nothing to go off of, and yes, they were duped. Which, by the way, imagine if Zeke wasn't doing this in pursuit of the euthanasia plan, and was actually working with Marley all along. Like, all of this is just a military campaign, and now they have a sleeper army inside of Paradis, just like all those other nations. Paradis would be like instantly beyond even cooked. Jean of course also realizes that Niccolo was actually protecting them. But Niccolo just says that he doesn't even know what he's actually doing. He came here to save the world from the island devils, but he fell in love with one. He wanted to protect these people, but put up blinders to the fact that he was poisoning them. He just breaks down saying he can never atone, he was about to kill a child. It's just a beautiful story of a character who did realize the futility of this war and found their true purpose, only to be violently dragged right back into that brutality as the person who saved him is shot dead. Say it with me now, cruel but beautiful. Gabby asks why did they save her and whether they'll kill her now. Armin just sighs, saying,
Always with the killing, it's like it's all you ever think about. Like someone else I know.
Oh, speak of the devil, hey Aaron! Wait a minute, Aaron? I guarantee you, Isayama had a big goofy smile on his face because this is literally just the, oh hey, speak of the devil reminds me of someone I know. Very funny, Isayama. Memes aside though, I actually love Armin's reaction here because, yeah, like 80% of the time Gabby is on screen, she is screaming about either A, Eldian devils, or B, we kill them or they kill us. It's just nonsensical ramblings to the point of, yeah, becoming quite obnoxious. Yes, Gabby, we repeatedly saved you, never put a finger on you, fed you, are now trying to save your friend, but now we are going to kill you. Absolutely, at this exact point. Armin is just exhausted by all of this. In the other room, the Jaegerists arrest the scouts, and very fittingly, notice how Hanji's squad are now all in just the plain white shirts. Like we discussed last time, the identity of the scouts and the meaning of those wings of liberation has been twisted into something unrecognizable. It's a group that Hanji's squad no longer belongs to. Not sure if it's fully intentional, but if I were to overanalyze, it pops up a few more times later in the arc, almost as if to ask the question of, what is that freedom that those wings represents? Eren would never wear them again, because he is not free. But we would see Peak pop up wearing a scout uniform with some very spicy takes regarding the freedom of Eldians. Then again, Levi would still be dripped out throughout all of this, so I severely doubt there is like a underlying reason there. But on the flip side again, considering the dedicate your heart salute is also twisted into something horrible, I think the imagery of the wings is definitely meant to at least be questioned throughout this arc. Like we also talked about last time, Hanji says that they don't want to fight and that they're just putting themselves in danger with all this bickering. The paradox of tolerance. Eren's insubordination and now even a political assassination was tolerated, and so the intolerants have simply taken over. Similar to Yelena, we also see Flock just single-mindedly parroting Eren's directives while simultaneously claiming to not be a subordinate of Hanji's. This is the consequences of Eren's charge and his experience fully manifested. He believes that he survived just to ensure that a devil leads them to quote-unquote victory. that is it. He was like 15 during Shiganshina. He's a young, traumatized boy whose defining experience in life was a strong leader literally leading a death charge. The only thing he recognizes as an authority figure is a equally powerful and, more importantly, assertive leader. After surviving the charge, he will blindly dedicate himself to said leader, regardless of what they command, even if it is a literal death charge. In terms of personal input, there is nothing. As long as he considers his great leader to be powerful, he will do anything. Again, it's the same exact cult of personality that is formed around Zeke, it's just a slightly different flavor. Hanji just drops the negotiation saying the wine has been laced with Zeke's spinal fluid, and that all of them are being played. Flock, being the smug little douche that he is, says that he'll just make the MPs look like even bigger idiots. Except Hanji never said anything about the MPs. So, yes, this true patriot fighting in the name of the island is not only blowing up domestic opposition, he is also letting his own people be turned into man-eating monsters who can never be saved. Truly a great leader with a great cause who will certainly never harm his own people. Returning to our main trio though, Eren, his face clearly showing his exhaustion and hate for what he's about to do, just says that he wanted to talk to them. We'll leave most of this for next time, but this seemingly simple act of talking is actually hugely important in Eren's plan, and would continue to be this sign of what he is doing even during the rumbling. At this point, neither Armin or Mikasa are certain on which side he falls on. So, knowing this, he comes here not really wanting to talk per se, but rather to deliberately burn the bridges between them. Armin would still see through the act and say that Eren is doing something entirely different, which is when Eren would pull them back into the paths to again assert that he wants to talk about the fact that there is nothing to talk about. Eren's appearance here is a deliberate attack against Armin and Mikasa to distance himself as much as possible to ensure that they just don't get caught in the crossfire that would be the activation of the rumbling. Again, there's a ton more to talk about, so we'll leave that for next time. One last thing though, to everyone who is expecting me to fill this with memes of Eren bringing McDonald's and playing a board game and whatnot, I will not do that. It's not funny. It's a serious scene. You cannot meme serious scenes. Okay, yeah, no, I lied. You're gonna be seeing a lot more memes in the next episode as well. Every single one of the shots of them sitting at this table here is like meme gold. I love this. And also, yes, this is the scene of the infamous Steam screenshot. And with that, that is episode 72. If you thought this episode was very heavy on personal narratives, well then, buckle up, because next episode in the Eren, Armin, Mikasa conversation is just so good. The way he attacks both of them with skill sets that they do not possess, he destroys Mikasa mentally, but he attacks Armin physically, it's cinema. We'll talk about all this. It's a lot to say. And because there's a lot to say, I will shut up now. So, I hope to see you back as we continue overanalyzing Attack on Titan. And that's the video. I already have a rough outline for the next episode video, and yeah, it's gonna be a doozy. And also, since you've made it all the way to the end of the video, and I don't actually remember if I've said this before, but I do think I have a workable draft for the What If Erwin Survived video, so maybe that's coming soon as well. I mean, statistically speaking, no, but maybe. That being said, usual reminders, join the Discord if you never want to miss an upload, catch me live on Twitch or on the second channel if you ever want to ask me like random questions about Attack on Titan, that's definitely the best place to do that. But with that, I want to say a massive thank you to our current patrons and YouTube members who allow me to produce even more of these for you all. And let's also give a warm welcome to the newest members of the team, King Wolf 8123, Elijah Urena, I think, and Lyad. Without you, there'd be a whole lot less of my rambling, so seriously, thank you, thank you. Other than that, I want to say thank you very much for watching, I hope you have a great day, and hopefully, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye!